Plaid friends, welcome back to the www.PlaidAvenger.com, where we just don't want to hear the news. I want you to understand the news, and there's all kinds of hell breaking out once again on the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, a place that's been ablaze with fun for not just decades, but perhaps millennia of mayhem and madness. And once again, the U.S. finds itself in some trouble, this time on the Pakistan side of the border. Let's entitle this one, Plagued and Pissed Pakistanis Neutralize NATO. Wow. And in fact, this story is so chaotic and convoluted that it's going to have to be unfolded in a three-parter for you. That's right, a three-parter Plaidcast that's actually going to be a revisitation of the mess and mayhem along this very hot border, perhaps the most active war front on planet Earth, the Afghan-Pakistan border. But what's got the Plaid Avengers panties in a bunch right this second that I'm going to revisit this mess? Well, if you haven't heard, on September 30th, the Pakistani government closed a crucial border point between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and it's crucial because it was the main supply line for NATO fuel, for NATO troops, for NATO resupplies going through Pakistan to fight the most active, hottest part of the NATO war in Afghanistan, there in southern Afghanistan. And they did it because they're just furious pissed. Now, today is 10/10/10, and they just reopened the border checkpoint so that NATO troops, NATO supplies, NATO mostly fuel is now running through that checkpoint again. But in the 10-day interim that they had everything blocked off and stopped, a bunch of these supplies, mostly the fuel trucks, were attacked by militants, by perhaps Taliban militants and Al-Qaeda militants, and they caught the shit on fire and they attacked people. I mean, this is really a chaotic mess here on this border, but on the Pakistani side. Now, what the hell's going on with this? So things have opened back up again, but it was a 10-day debacle while things were stopped up. And the United States, of course, was extremely unhappy. The whole NATO command structure, extremely unhappy. This is really affecting the NATO war in Afghanistan. And one has to ask the question, well, what the hell's going on here? I mean, isn't Pakistan a U.S. ally? They are. Well, on again, off again for decades, but mostly we consider Pakistan a U.S. ally. Pakistan gets billions and billions of dollars of U.S. foreign aid every year. Pakistan has been critical in everything to do with this whole U.S./NATO war in Afghanistan. So what's been going on? Why did the Pakis get so pissed off that they shut down this crucial artery for resupplying NATO? Well, as the title suggests, Pakistan has been plagued and pissed off as of late. And I'm going to introduce this now, then after the three-part series, we'll come back and wrap this up and talk about what's going on at the time. But what Pakistan has been plagued and pissed about right this second is, of course, their country has been under a flood of biblical/Quranic proportions for the last month and a half now. Half of the damn country has been flooded to the point of virtually shutting it down. And it's just a humanitarian disaster. It's been a political disaster. It's just been a mess for everyone involved. And of course, the Pakistani militaries had to step up to try to move supplies within Pakistan to try to save their own damn people from the impending disaster. And they have not had time to mess with this NATO war in Afghanistan. So they've had to refocus their own efforts on their own country's survival. They're not been that worried about what the hell the NATO people want in the supply lines going into Afghanistan, a war that they couldn't frankly care that much about, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Now that's why they've been plagued with this flood, which has taken a lot out of their sails. But they've also been pissed at the same time. The whole time this flood disaster is going on, the United States decided to do some cross-border drone attacks. That is basically rockets with little cameras on them sent across from Afghanistan into Pakistani sovereign state territory to hit terrorist targets. Now, we might say, yay, the U.S. took out terrorist targets, but this is infuriating to Pakistan, infuriating to the Pakistani people, infuriating to the Pakistani military who say, WTF, you are attacking our sovereign state. Yes, you say you're going after terrorists and stuff, and maybe you're actually hitting terrorists and stuff, but these U.S. drone attacks accidentally killed a couple of Pakistani soldiers. Oh my God. Are you starting to see the culminating mess that occurred here a couple of weeks ago? The biblical floods on top of a drone attack which killed some innocent civilians / soldiers, and Pakistan is just furious. They're beside themselves, and this is not the first time. This is not just a current event of the last 2 weeks. This is a long history of Pakistan being frustrated and entirely pissed off at the United States and NATO and their whole war in Afghanistan. So, Pakistan's internal issues, dealing with itself, and problems with the United States have now directly affected the NATO war against the Afghan Taliban in Afghanistan, in another country, because all this stuff culminated up and got Pakistan so pissed, they said, that's it, we've had enough, we're busy, and we're shutting off the border to teach you people a lesson. Stop playing around with these drone attacks. But I'm getting way ahead of myself now. I'm talking about the Afghan Taliban, because actually Pakistan's been fighting the Pakistan Taliban as well. And Al-Qaeda elements are in Pakistan as well as Afghanistan. In fact, the United States would say, hey, those drone attacks that we accidentally killed some of your people, they actually struck Al-Qaeda people, so they were good. So you're starting to see what this Afghanistan-Pakistan border is just a huge convoluted mess. And the fate of both of the countries lies in the balance of all this bullshit going on both sides of the borders. This is such a mess that now we're going to take a 3-part series, one that was recorded about a year ago, and it's still topical. And I entitled this one, Af-Pak Insanity, Borderline Chaos. A 3-parter that deals with places, peoples, and then problems of all the stuff we're talking about. Watch these 3 podcasts, and then we'll come back at the end, revisit what's been going on in the interim, catch things up to current events, and hopefully make some sense to you about the problems with Pakistan, Afghanistan, the U.S., and NATO, all culminating right here in this absolute borderline bullshit that's going down right now and affecting a whole lot of current events.